within our community to reinforce moving in a sustainable direction. So today represents a really wonderful step as a community to have these conversations. And I'm going to be very brief here and just extend my welcome to you to the Princeton campus for this conversation. Thanks very much for taking the time.
Thank you, Shauna. We're also very fortunate to have Mayor Liz Lemper here, Mayor of Princeton. She's going to speak a few moments on the exciting Bloomberg Mayor's Challenge that Princeton was fortunate enough to receive from the Bloomberg Philanthropies. Mayor Lemper?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be with you here today and have the opportunity to give you an update on the municipality's Let's Sort It Out initiative, which aims to address the challenge and opportunities of residential food waste. So this project is being funded through the Bloomberg Philanthropies Mayor's Challenge. The Mayor's Challenge is a national competition among cities to come up with an innovative solution to a big problem. So we were one of 35 cities across the country to make the first cut, and we received an $100,000 grant to start testing our ideas. And other finalist cities are working on a range of problems, big problems, from the juvenile justice system to addressing the opioid crisis. And Princeton is trying to tackle the problem of food waste. Princeton sends 5,500 tons of residential trash to the landfill every year. And it's estimated that 1/4 of that is food waste. And as many of you, I'm talking to the choir here, I think, but as many of you know, when food waste decomposes in the landfill, it releases methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas 25 times more damaging than carbon dioxide. And if you can figure out a way to divert that organic material from the landfill, you not only help the climate, but you can also capture that raw material, and it can be processed into something of value for our local farmers and gardeners. Princeton is literally throwing away money when we landfill food waste. It costs $195 for each ton we throw away. And to make matters worse, we are running out of landfill space. Princeton's original landfill reached capacity in 2005, and we've been exporting our waste ever since to giant landfills in Tullytown, Pennsylvania. Ultimately, that landfill will fill up, and as landfill space becomes scarcer and more distant, disposal costs will inevitably increase. This is not just a local problem. Each year, 1.6 billion tons of food waste ends up in landfills, making it the world's 3rd largest generator of greenhouse gases. So Princeton has had a residential food waste collection program in place since 2011. We were actually the first in New Jersey, but it's facing challenges. At first, Princeton's food waste was hauled to a large regional facility in Delaware called Peninsula, but that facility closed after other people got on board. New York City mandated food waste collection, and the facility was receiving so much food waste that it led to contamination and odor problems and community health concerns. The year since, Princeton has sent its waste to 3 other facilities, which all ended the relationship for various reasons. And for a period, Princeton's food waste was being sent to a waste-to-energy facility next to the Pennsylvania landfill where our trash goes, where it was being recombined with trash and incinerated, which is obviously not a good solution since our residents are paying to be in the program and spending the time to separate their waste, and we want to make sure that it's being composted. Right now, we're in a trial period with a compost farm in Pennsylvania and hoping to establish a regular relationship with them. So several states have set food waste reduction targets, including New Jersey, which has a goal of reducing food waste by half by 2030. But there are no concrete plans to meet this goal, and cities across the country have struggled to implement cost-effective, sustainable diversion programs. So So as part of our work with Bloomberg, we're aiming to address these problems. And our solution centers on two ideas. The first idea is that we can use behavioral science-based interventions to prevent contamination problems by improving resident sorting habits. And two, we can benefit by having small-scale local processing facilities. An in-town facility would reduce hauling costs and provide stability, finally allowing us to scale the program and to offer it to all of our residents. Right now it's voluntary and people have to pay to join. And we're specifically looking, for those of you who know Princeton, at the River Road site where our sewage treatment plant is. Let's Sort It Out makes use of behavioral science and user-based design to guide new participants to sort their waste properly, avoiding contamination problems that have caused other facilities to close. So contamination, I'm sure a lot of you have read, is a huge problem in the recycling industry as well. China recently shut its doors to recycling from the United States, largely as a response to the contamination. And as a result, just speaking locally, Princeton's recycling bill has increased 40%, which is, we have to figure out how we're going to absorb that cost. The primary culprit is plastic bags, both for food waste and also for recycling. And we're working with local grocery stores to better label acceptable bags for the compost program and getting the word out to our residents. I think there's a common misperception that what you bag your recycling in and what you bag your food waste in doesn't itself need to be compostable or recyclable, but it does. There's nobody there opening your bags and dumping out your waste. This problem that we've had with our food waste being sent to the incinerator temporarily, I'm hoping we can use that message to help get the word out to our residents and let them know how important their actions are to keeping this program viable. So we have a great team working on our Bloomberg project. Princeton Public Works Departments, Matt Wasserman has been the team lead from Sustainable Princeton. We're working with a group of students from the university. They've named themselves Team Swift. Swift for sorting food waste into food and trash. And they've been fabulous to work with. They're one of the Tiger Challenge teams out of the Keller Center. And we've also been working with researchers across the university, including the Department of Sustainability. And I see Gina Talt in the back there, and she's been an important member of our team too. We've had great interest from NJDEP, from local farmers, and also we've gotten tremendous support from Bloomberg as part of this process, and I just want to thank them. I've never been part of a grant like this before, where they've actually sent us people who can help, both design thinking experts, people who've worked with other governments in, how do you put together a program that's going to be effective, how do you set goals that are measurable, and helping us through the application process. So that's been invaluable, and I think we've learned lessons there that we can apply to other challenges the municipality is working on. So as part of the finalist phase, we've conducted a number of studies and tests and interviews and focus groups, and members of the team have personally interacted with over 1,000 members of the community and have dug through hundreds of bags of food waste as part of periodic waste audits. And I'm proud to say I did get my hands a little bit dirty for one of those. And they're quite illuminating, actually. When you open the bag, it's the only way to test whether your message is getting through or not. So I'm just going to go over some of the things we've learned so far. One is we learned that we needed to target our interventions to the entire household, not just the person who signs up to be in the program. We got sort of a humorous email from one participant who eagerly signed up for the program and then complained to us that my husband can't even put away his shoes, let alone separate his food waste. And we also discovered that even when households do a good job and are really careful with what goes in their bucket, we have a curbside program. So once those bins go out on the curbside, we need to do a better job making sure that there's not passerby contamination, because we were finding bags of dog waste, soda cans, like one loose soda can that was clearly coming from somebody walking down the street, or most likely coming from somebody walking down the street, not from the household themselves. And we had some positive surprises as well. We were anticipating state government red tape with the idea of trying to locate a processing facility here in Princeton. But the Department of Environmental Protection has actually been fabulous, and they convened all the necessary divisions to review our application and provided us with a submission shortcut we can utilize if and when we're ready to move forward. And they're actually hopeful and excited to work with us, hoping that Princeton's model is going to help New Jersey meet its food waste reduction targets. Just a few other findings. We found that the more people see others in their community are involved, the more likely they are to participate. As part of this process, we picked a street where we decided instead of having people sign up for the program, we were going to tell everybody on the street, congratulations, here's your bin, start composting. We did receive an angry call from someone who said, where's my bin? All of my neighbors got a bin, where's my bin? So we thought that that was interesting, especially as we think about whether and how we can roll this out townwide. We have evaluated several technologies that process food waste. For Princeton, the compost makes most sense, but for other communities, a different process might make more sense. Another interesting finding I thought were through our what's called empathy interviews, which are a long interview that are sort of open-ended, where you try to figure out where a person is coming from and what's motivating them. And our empathy interviews showed that a lot of our residents feel overwhelmed by the emotional toll caused by worrying about all of these seemingly uncontrollable crises that are happening in our world today, whether it's climate change or, well, you can fill in the blank there. But they want to have specific actions that make them feel good and make them feel like they're doing something. And our project provided an opportunity for daily engagement and impact, and there is value in that too. So as part of our next phase, we're going to be engaging residents differently based on behavioral science personae developed by our Princeton University partners. And these are sort of entertaining, so I thought I'd share with you. So for those people who are happy to join and remain in the program, we're calling them environmentally enthusiastic Emily, or Emily's. And we're going to be focusing on program awareness techniques with them. And then for those who need a push to join, but are satisfied once they are enrolled and gotten up to speed, we're calling them now Happy Harrys. And for them, we're focusing on financial incentives, whether there's programs we can put in place to encourage them to join, community perceptions, and the ease of use of the program. For those who are willing to join the program, but a bit ambivalent, ambivalent towards this program and general environmental efforts, we're calling them Indifferent Irene. And for the Irenes, we're focusing on more hand-holding techniques and making sure that we're constantly communicating. And then finally, for those who need a push to join and remain in the program, we're calling them Troubled Thelmas. And they're our hardest group, and so we're going to be trying to engage them on multiple fronts. We're in this next phase forward, we're still waiting to hear whether Princeton is one of the winners of the actual Mayor's Challenge. We made it to this finalist phase. The grand prize winner is going to receive a $5 million grant, and there'll also be 4 $1 million recipients. We are up against some pretty stiff competition: City of Boston, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Chicago. But I also want to applaud Bloomberg for including smaller towns in that mix as well. And we think one of the things that's unique about our program is hopefully we can come up with a solution that works for smaller towns. Because if you look across the country, if you leave out small town solutions, you're going to be leaving out a huge opportunity for addressing this problem nationwide. This project's really important for the town and for me personally for a number of reasons, because it helps address some of the other projects we're working on and some of the other big priorities we have. Right now, we're working on developing a community climate action plan with Sustainable Princeton. And this, I think, is going to be a key component of the municipal part, because trash is a municipal responsibility. We can't, as a municipality, I can't dictate what cars people drive or what food they buy at the store or anything else. But this is something the municipality has direct control over and can make a real impact with. It also helps, I think, create a culture of equity and put our money where our mouth is. Because right now, Princeton is exporting its waste to a community that's dealing with environmental justice problems. And if we can keep some of that waste here locally and turn it into something positive for our community, not only do we retain that positive thing, but we're not dumping our pollution on someone else. And it also has the potential to cut costs. And one of the side benefits of it is to really help to create a wonderful working relationship with Princeton University. Working with the Tiger Challenge team has been fantastic, and some of the professors at the university who dug into this with us too. And we're hoping this is going to cut across some other initiatives we have. And just in closing, I'd like to say that we're eager to work and to try to figure out how we can work with the restaurant community here in town to see how we can combine efforts. I think one of the things that the town shares with restaurants and businesses is that waste doesn't do anyone any good. And we're looking for ways to cut costs. I know you guys are looking for ways to cut costs. And if we can do that in a way that helps the environment at the same time, it's a win for everyone. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Mayor Lempert. Even though the Bloomberg Mayor's Challenge focused mostly on residential waste, I think there's a lot to learn and transfer when it comes to commercial waste. And to highlight the need for a project like that, I need to be more clear. You cannot put the plates in the blue bins. Those are not able to be composted. So there were some questions that I need to clarify. So maybe I should have been part of that team, but I need to learn too. Yes, it's food only. None of the plates can go, the bamboo plates can go into the blue bins. So clarity there. Okay. Our next speaker is John McConaughey. He is the general manager of Brick Farm Tavern. He also owns Brick Farm Market and Doublebrook Farms. In 2015, he and his wife opened Brick Farm Tavern to bring locally grown ingredients from Doublebrook Farm to partner farms from farm to table. So please welcome John McConaughey.
How's that? I have my reusable bag. So elaborate a little bit on me and the agenda. My wife, I was in finance for 20 years and decided we would make a shift and try to make a difference. And we decided here to look at farming. As we looked at farming as a possibility, we came to the conclusion after talking to farmers and restaurateurs that the farmers had the problem of marketing and distribution, and the restaurants had the problem of sourcing and reliability. So we figured if we would tie those things together, we could do a vertically integrated closed-loop food system. And the idea would be the food would be grown by the farm, it would go to the restaurant and the market to be sold. If it didn't get sold to the restaurant and the market, it would come back to the farm as food or fertilizer. That was the idea. It's evolved a little bit from there. But in order to do that, you need a lot of other pieces. So in addition to the animal farm and the vegetable farm, we have an on-farm slaughterhouse, we have a butcher shop, we have a bakery, we partner with a grist mill, we have a market, we have 2 restaurants, we have 2 compost facilities. And so that's my background. I got there through finance, and so all this will sort of come into play today as I'm talking about things that will give a little a little bit of perspective of what I'm talking about and why I'm talking about it. So I was asked to speak today by the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, which when I got the email, I was like, I'm a candid camera, right? You're asking me to be in a sustainable program for food waste by the DEP. And so I'll give it to the DEP that it's inspiring to me. That the only time I've been contacted by the DEP prior to this was because I had done something perceivably wrong and they were going to fine me for something. So to have them being progressive is awesome. And I didn't know who else was involved in this. So then as I looked at the people putting this workshop together, I've been involved with all of them. So the Rutgers Eco Complex, I initially was introduced to through an algae program we were working on. So we were growing algae vertically in air, and why I cared was the idea is you could grow algae in the size of a shipping container, powered by solar, to create biofuel to run the entire farm and to create food for the animals. So out of thin air, you create biofuel, you create food, and the sun makes the whole thing work. Anyway, that was my initial introduction to the eco-complex. And then as we got there, I'm walking through, getting to our little corner of the eco-complex, which if you don't know about it, it's also very progressive, very cool thing. The idea of methane gas making its way into the atmosphere, that's a landfill where they're capturing the gas to heat the greenhouses. It's awesome, but it's also an incubator for small business, and that's why we were there. We got reduced rates for rent to be in a greenhouse so that we could come up with this idea of vertical algae. Ultimately, it ended up that it didn't work. But walking through to our little corner, I had to pass all these other things. And one of the things I passed was a company that was growing basil and lettuce and a bunch of other things sustainably because they were getting their energy from the landfill and they were doing things locally. And so now our supplier for lettuce for the restaurant comes from lettuce, basil, a few other things, comes from this farm that we got introduced to at the Eco Complex. And the cool thing about it is that they're not boxes that go back and forth. We have a reusable container that it shows up, we clean it, it goes back, it goes up, it goes back. And one of the other big things is that it's living. So when it comes to us, it doesn't come to us dead, it comes to us living. So we can put it into water, we can sell it to our consumer, and it reduces the waste of what we're doing on the lettuce side. During the season, we get it from soil, but when we can't get it from the soil, we're getting it from the Rutgers, the Eco Complex. And so sustainability, the most important part of being a restaurateur, being involved with a business, the most sustainable part of it is making money. So profitability drives everything. And if you can connect the dots where sustainability is also profitable, right, that's awesome. And so in this case, through the Eco Complex, we had something that was not only sustainable, but it was more profitable. We didn't have to pay for the boxes, we didn't have to pay for the waste, we didn't have to pay for a lot of things that goes along with getting lettuce on a regular basis. So sustainable Princeton we're involved with because we have let me actually get to the Office of Sustainability here at Princeton. That one of our compost programs, the ferment compost, where we take the food waste that was getting picked up from the market and the restaurant, and it gets ground and then fermented, and from that you get animal feed and you get fertilizer. They also, and so it was a company that I was involved with, but they were renting space in our farm. So it was symbiotic for us because if we can feed our animals and collect our waste and have fertilizer, that works great. So very symbiotic. We were involved with it. We had them on our property, but they also would pick up 20 to 30 tons a week from Princeton of the Princeton food waste. So through that, we've had contacts with the Princeton, the Office of Sustainability, and then completely randomly different connection. Gina is now out doing studies on the farm about how the soil is affected with grass-fed and compost and other things. So that's been a connection that we've had with the Office of Sustainability. The Mayor challenged this idea of ferment compost once you pick up the waste and it goes to a ferment state or it goes to a compost station, how does that look? What is the least impact? What is the use after it becomes compost? And so we've been working with Matt Wasserman and Mayor Lambert with the idea that perhaps this is a solution for once you pick up the waste, where it goes to. So anyway, that's a little bit of background about how I'm here today and how really all the dots get connected, and it's pretty inspiring, I think. So looking at the title, Beyond Farm to Fork, Growing a Vibrant Local Economy. Well, I guess before we get beyond farm to fork, let's talk about farm to fork. I'm not sure how we got to farm to fork, because we were at farm to table. And so you go from farm to table to beyond farm to table to farm to fork. Beyond farm to fork, I think it's farm to mouth, right? We do away with the table to fork. And then maybe we bring the table back to the farm, so it's table to farm. And then get beyond that, and maybe it's fork to farm, and we can just sit in the dirt and eat something. Right? There's no waste. Get our hands dirty, and it's great. So I was asked the other day by a very educated group that I get together with on a regular basis and read books and talk about how we can make things better, and it feels great because we're all preaching to the choir and feel better about ourselves. But the question was, and somebody that knows this stuff said, as a farm-to-table restaurant, are you certified or regulated? Now, you people that own restaurants, that seems like a crazy question. No, there's no certification. Nobody watches. Nobody says, yes, you can be labeled as a farm-to-table. But then as I started to think about it, it's not so crazy, right? Because let's go through a few things. You buy a steer from a feedlot through auction. You put it on grass for a month. Is that grass-fed? All right, you put it on grass for a week. Is that grass-fed? You buy it from the feedlot, you put it on grass for a day. Is that grass-fed? Well, there's no regulations around it. So, yeah, it could possibly be grass-fed. You're going to the store, you're buying grass-fed. There's a chance that that is a grain-fed animal. Well, that sounds a little shocking, right? But let's look at the idea of grass-fed grain finish. The way the cattle market works in the United States is that the ranchers that do the breeding and raising of the calves are separate from the feedlots, 100% of the time. So they breed the cows have babies, the offspring are kept with the cows for 10, 11, 12 months. During that time, they're nursing, and then after 2 months, 3 months, they start eating grass. Right? So that calf is grass-fed, bought by the feedlots, goes to the feedlot, they fill of corn, goes off to the slaughterhouse. Every cattle harvested in the United States is grass-fed, grain-finished. Right? So what does that mean, grass-fed, grain-finished? You take 4 chickens, you put them in a cage, you clip their beaks because otherwise they're going to kill themselves or kill each other. They lay an egg, it goes out of the cage, it gets on a conveyor, it goes down, it gets washed, it goes in a carton. That egg has never spent any time in the cage. That egg is cage-free, right? That one is, the first time I saw that, cage-free egg. Do we care about it? I care about the chicken. I'm not sure I care about whether that egg's been in the cage. So anyway, the point being that it's all confusing, and a lot of this stuff doesn't have regulation. So 4 years ago, we decided for a number of reasons that the vegetable part of our operation, we weren't going to control it as a farm anymore. We were going to rent it out to a farmer, and we would give them first priority in terms of how we use stuff at the market or the restaurant. And so I didn't spend a whole lot of time over there because they were doing their thing. They were running like a business, and I didn't need to be over there. But I went over to talk to them a few months ago, and I walked into the barn, and there's all these people packing stuff in boxes and putting them in the corner. And on the boxes, it is Amazon Fresh. And so initially I was like, I'm not sure I want my tenant farmer having Amazon Fresh on my property. But I didn't say much about it, and I started to talk to them. And the people packing the boxes obviously weren't making the decisions. They were there just packing the boxes. But I started to talk to them and saying, what are you doing? And they said, well, this is Amazon Fresh. So, you know, we get our orders, we put the orders together, we get all the stuff as local as possible, and then we ship it out. And so I started looking at the boxes. We've got grapes from Korea, we've got lettuce from California, we had avocados, I think, from Argentina, and they were going into these boxes, and well, what it was coming from the farm, right? Amazon Fresh, you order it and it comes from the farm, even though not a single thing going into those boxes is actually from the farm. But they could say, yeah, it's coming from the farm, because it was. So, local, grass-fed, grain finished, all natural, free range, pasture raised, hormone free, antibiotic free, humane handled, humanely raised. All these things, you know, what do they mean? Or do they mean what we think they mean? Get a little bit of water. So very few of these things are regulated. Some are lightly, but not in the way that you would expect them to be. You know, so grass-fed does have some regulation. You can't put it on grass for a day. They do have some regulations around it, but very, very light for the most part. So, what is a farm to table then? How would you define a farm to table? Is McDonald's a farm to table? Everything that McDonald's serves comes from a farm, right? By definition, everything that we eat comes from a farm. ShopRite, by definition, is a farmer's market. Everything that they have comes from a farm. So that's not what we mean, right? When you think of farm to table, that's not what we mean. It just doesn't feel right. So think about what you had for dinner last night. It's hard for me to think what I had for breakfast this morning, but think about what you had for dinner last night. Are there any vegans or vegetarians in the group? Okay, you're excluded from this question and answer. Somebody give me what they had for dinner last night. Yes?
I had a rotisserie chicken from Whole Foods.
Got it. Anybody else? Yes?
I had tofu with mushrooms.
Okay, anybody else?
Steak and salad.
Yes?
Was it the Lubitsch Farm that had a Farmers Against Hunger fundraiser? So there was all kind of cool stuff there.
I'm completely the opposite way. I had fried chicken and mashed potatoes from Wawa.
All right. Not judging.
And cod and cargo.
What?
Cod and cargo.
Okay. So I'm not judging. The point that I'm about to bring up is that you defined everyone except this woman, so I'm going to exclude her from this experiment. Everybody's dinner last night was defined by the protein, right? So every one of you defined something almost 99% is not from the farm, right? Because animal protein has to go to a USDA inspected slaughterhouse first. Because of that hurdle, very little of it actually is coming from the farm. But that's how we define our meal, right? So when I asked you to think about what does farm to table mean to you, I doubt any of you thought it was, where does my chicken come from? Where does my beef come from? Where does my pork come from? Where does my dairy come from? It probably was, it's a restaurant that puts together carrots and tomatoes and lettuce that come from the farm, right? And so if that's how we're defining farm to table, what you've defined is about 10%, 15% of the plate, right? It's not steak with a little bit of tomato, and if you add grains to that too. So grains is one of those things that may come locally, but generally not, because it has to be processed, right? And so the majority of the grains that we eat, unless you're talking about the actual berry, which is restaurant talk for the grain, that it probably came through the middle of the United States as opposed to locally. So if you cut grain out, Potatoes actually could be farm to table, except there's 3 or 4 big ones that are hard to be farm to table because of the sheer volume. Potatoes, carrots, onions, right? So those 3, we don't get many from our farm because the quantities that we go through just almost make it impossible for that to be supplied to the farm. So cut out carrots, potatoes, onions, grains, dairy, protein, and you're left with not much. So what does farm to table mean then? Maybe it means local. So within 5 miles a year, there's a family farm that is run by the family, very few employees, that have an egg operation that houses several 100,000 chickens, 4 to a cage, 8 high, fed GMO grains with low-grade antibiotics to keep them alive. Their only time they've ever seen sunlight was the day that they arrived and the day that they go to be killed. Otherwise, they spend their entire lives inside. When they get to the point that they molt, which is when a chicken, the days start to shorten and the chickens stop laying eggs and they lose their feathers, they can get them to lay again by depriving them of food and water and keep them in complete darkness for 48 hours. That'll get the chicken to lay again. Can't do it very often, so you get a useful life of about 18 months out of the chicken. So that's happening 5 miles from here. Is that what we mean about farm to table? Right? It's close, it's local. That's not really it either. Is it about the quality? Is it about the carbon footprint? Is it about the nutrition? Is it about the practices? Is it a combination of all these things? Well, wrong props. Taza chocolate, you ever hear of it? Stone ground, got bold flavor, organic ingredients, non-GMO. Hershey's bar. Show of hands. Farm to table. Farm to table. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. 117 miles away. Every dollar that goes to Hershey goes to the education. There's a portion of it goes to the education of kids. Largest chocolate producer in the United States, in the world. Biggest buyer of fair trade cocoa in the world. Biggest employer of people in the central Pennsylvania area. It's local, it's doing good for the community, it's giving people jobs, it's affecting more farmers from fair trade than any other chocolate company. Made in Boston, right? And to be clear, the cocoa doesn't come from the United States, so where it's made really doesn't make that much of a difference. Made in Boston, what, 200 miles away? Small place, doesn't employ that many people. Packaging isn't particularly more sustainable than this. Doesn't give any money to charity. So, still to me, this doesn't feel farm to table to me. I guess the point is that it's not, the answers aren't always clear. I'm not done yet. Dancing Deer Baking Company. Tasty cake, cherry pie. My mom would not buy me sweets, and I don't think I got any of my food passion from my mom, but she wouldn't buy me sweets. But once a week I was allowed to get something. This is what I would get. I haven't bought one in about 45 years, but because I bought it the other day. All right, so which one? which one would fit into your idea of farm to table?
Princeton cake is probably more shorter shelf life.
Shelf life of this expires.
Are you sure?
It expires this year. I would have thought like Twinkies is good for 100
No,
years.
Twinkies is actually fresh delivery.
Yeah.
The original Twinkies, I don't know what they're
Yeah.
doing now. The original Twinkies were fresh from the factory. They would have their own salespeople put it into the store.
Yeah.
And there was a shelf life of maybe like 7 days. And then they would take it off and bring it back. And it would go into a thrift store. And then if it didn't go to the thrift store, we usually get to put in a bakery.
Yeah, so I was under the impression that it was good for 100, that Twinkies good for 100 years.
Not the original one, the ones that were taken over, yeah, I don't know what they're doing now.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, this one is made in Boston, right? So almost the same ingredients, really, truly almost the same ingredients. They use cane sugar as opposed to sugar. And actually, once you get to the filling, then there's some real crap in here. But the flour itself is the same. The sugar is the same. Almost the same ingredients. This was family run from 1914. It's in Philadelphia. It's 45 miles from here. This was made in Boston. Again, 200 miles from here. Still, it's hard for me not to think that this is the one that I would choose, but it's not necessarily a clear choice. Now we get into a bigger, more philosophic question. This is an apple, organic, from Argentina. This is an apple, non-organic, from Turkey Farms. Right? One is very local, family run, great place to go visit, but it's not organic. This is the harder one. What's the right question? Yeah.
But I think, with that as an example, what defines organic and at Terhune, they might be farming organically, but they don't have that certification, or they haven't.
No. So, well, but you do bring up an interesting question, right? Part of what we're going to get, the conclusion that has to be is you have to know about what it is, and then you can make an educated choice. But in the case of Terhune, they do something called innovative pest management, IPM. And Rutgers actually is very involved with that whole program. And so prior to that, the orchards, and some would still do, would spray 12 times a year. And then they got innovative, and then it was 8 times a year. But what innovative pest management is as the insects come, you trap a few, and you say, aha, they're here, now let's spray. So it drops the amount that they spray down by a factor of 10 or 20. So it's very light in terms of what it used to be, but fruit farming in general is very, very difficult for organic. So taking that out of the equation, so knowing that there is some pesticides that goes along with this, and it's 5 miles away, 6 miles away, and there's no pesticides involved with this, what would you rather have? An apple that gets on an airplane and has a big carbon footprint, or an apple that has, and there's no, to me, there's no right answer. I mean, either answer to me is reasonable. If you care about what goes in your body, maybe you want this one. If you think that you can wash it off, maybe you want this one.
Well, pick the Argentine apple. I mean, maybe it was raised without pesticides, but when they packed it into these big containers, if they add pesticides, is it now no longer organic? Because I'm having trouble believing that somebody's been tracking that all along and that nothing has been used. So.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily know the answer to that, but I think that you're getting now towards what the real answer is, which is that's a big part to me of what defines farm to table. It's about knowing your food. And so, as you thought about coming today, maybe you were a little bit excited, but maybe there's some anxiety. For me, there always is. There's a little bit of anxiety, there's a little bit of hopelessness, because I know that I'm going to be hit with a bunch of statistics, right? And at the end, there's probably not going to be an answer that I feel like, wow, I got bombarded with all these bad things, and I wasn't given really a solution at the end. That 50% of the food waste in the United States is going to a landfill. That there's an iceberg of garbage the size of Delaware floating out in the Atlantic. That that there's a dead zone in the Gulf the size of Texas, that there's now over 50 dead zones around the world. You get bombarded with all these things, that the ice is melting, the oceans are rising, polar bears are dying. You know, what can you do about it? So think about the most sustainable restaurant in the United States. Anybody? How about the East Coast? Yes.
McDonald's.
Yeah, no. Anybody? This is not a trick question. Perfect. Stone Barns at Blue Hill. $258 a plate, right? Is that sustainable? Can any of us go spend $250 a plate? No. Do they get the majority of their stuff from their farms? No. Do they get their animal protein from their farm? No. Do they get their fish sustainably raised from Spain? Yes. The fish is sustainably raised, then we put it on an airplane, then it comes over here. Was sustainable? Not so much anymore. They focus on the things that are not used much, right? At the cost of the things that are used, right? And so that they'll spend a lot of time taking the anal gland of ferrets so that you can eat it, but then the rest of the ferret goes away. I'm kidding about that. But you get the idea. So, but they're the #3 restaurant in the world. And they're #3 restaurant in the world because the average person thinks that they're sustainable. Why do you think they're sustainable? Dan Barber, the partner chef, knows more about food than maybe anybody I've ever met. He knows the difference between corn. He knows the difference between homogenization and pasteurization. He knows the difference between a Freedom Ranger and a Cornish cross. And he knows how to talk about those things, and he knows what the right answers are. So I think that's a big part of what we're talking about. The farm to table is about the idea of knowing where your food comes from. It's about the beginning, the middle, and the end. It's not just where it comes from, it's how it's raised. It's not just how it's prepared, it's where it goes after that. What happens to the waste? And so getting bombarded with this every day about where the ice melting and the polar bears dying, all of us want a solution. We want somebody to be thinking about the answer. And so I think that's what Farm to Table is about for us, is the ability to go to a restaurant where somebody has thought about all these things, that Dan Barber has thought about all these things, and hopefully he's making the right decision so that we don't have to think about it. That we can buy organic because somebody has thought about it, put a stamp on it, so we don't have to think about it. So that's the important part. Now, from the farm to table people that are here, and I think that the responsibility that we have is doing that, knowing those things, but actually putting them into practice. And it's the beginning, it's the middle, it's the end. It can't just be the beginning, and I'm getting the. So this is a waste. This is a waste program, right? So it becomes symbiotic, and it has to be that we're making money to do it, right? And so if it's symbiotic, where the farmer is bringing the ingredients, and then the waste is going back on the same truck to be turned into food or fertilizer. And it's not just about a farm; it's about a community. It's about all of us working together to get the right answers, using Princeton University, Sustainable Princeton, to help on the waste side. It's about the farmer helping on the food side. It's about the chefs taking it and preparing it in a way that reduces the waste. It's a combination of everything that gets us to the answer. And so one last thing, that it's not just the restaurants, right? But then the institutions have a responsibility here too, maybe more so than the restaurants. That Princeton University feeds a lot of people. Bloomberg feeds a lot of people. Rutgers feeds a lot of people. So the focus needs to go beyond the walls of the restaurant, beyond the community, and start to look at closed communities, at institutions, as buyers, as producers of waste, as consumers of what we do. So with that,
John, I think there is one question question you can answer is, are you going to eat that tasty cake? Because if not, I'm sure someone in the audience, now that you convinced us it's local and it's okay, I'm sure you'll find a taker. Okay. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty, so someone's going to try to get the slides up and ready. But while we're doing that, does anyone have any questions for John? Josh? Yes.
Okay, so after your whole explanation, as a farm-to-table restaurant owner yourself, where do you draw the line on the protein, on integration, and how do you make that kind of a choice?
So we from the animal side, we serve almost 100% of our protein. So everything is born on the farm, raised on the farm. Actually, this year we hatched out our own turkeys. We're in the process of hatching out our own ducks, and so born on the farm, raised on the farm, harvested on the farm, processed at our butcher shop, and then it makes its way to the restaurant. So it's a very broad question. It really comes down to you have to look at every individual thing, but I can't answer the question on every individual thing. Right? There's some things that we don't do that are sustainable, and this is, I think, is a very important point, and that all of the restaurants that are trying to be sustainable, as a consumer, you have to give them some leeway, right? So if the Cisco truck shows up one day, that doesn't do away with all the good that they've done up until then, right? And so as a market, if we have plastic cups because we haven't been able to get to that part of our equation yet, it's hard to do away with all the other goods. So Josh, to answer the question, that we focus on from the farm first, we then focus on local second, and then we focus on best practices third. But there's always going to be a little bit of give and take in there based upon what makes the most economic sense or what makes sense in the rest of the chain.
Thank you. So we're a little running a bit behind. Are we all set with the slides? Okay. So next up is Lane Barr. She works in the Bureau of Energy and Sustainability. Her responsibilities to include coordination of the New Jersey Sustainable Business Registry, which, if you do not know, Princeton has the most businesses on the registry, and we hope to stay at the top of that list. So if you are not on that registry and you are in Princeton, please talk to Helene or one of her colleagues afterwards, and they will help you get on the registry. So I'm looking at a few people here that I know or not. I won't call out your names, but I do know who you are. Okay. Helene. By a show of hands, how many people have heard of the registry before? Yeah, you're my people. So my name's Helene. I work in the Office of Sustainability, and I'm here to give you a very brief overview about the registry. And I think it goes nicely with some of John's closing remarks there. Really, any business can be sustainable. It's really all those small steps that you do. It can just be really just starting, doing small things, like cutting back on your printing, maybe, using sound louder. Is that better? Sorry, I'm not a loud person. I kind of sound like a beaker sometimes. That's what my husband tells me. I'm like, meep, meep, meep. So I'll try. So yeah, so every business can be sustainable. Every business can take steps to become more sustainable. So the registry was created back in 2014. It's a partnership between the DEP, the New Jersey Small Business Development Centers, and is funded through the Environmental Protection Agency. And it was created to recognize and promote those businesses that are being good environmental actors in the state, right? Those businesses that are doing those small steps to become greener, become more efficient, and doing things to be socially, environmentally responsible. We really encourage all businesses to adopt green practices. You don't have to be in sort of an eco field. It can be any retail establishment, manufacturing, restaurants, farms. We really would like to see the full gamut of businesses on the registry. And we're hoping that, as we grow our reach and more people are aware of it, that we can help influence customers so that they are checking up on their businesses. Has anybody ever read like a review of product on Amazon? Right? We all have. That's how we shop these days, right? We are looking for reviews. We want to know how our products are working. So we're hoping that this website
can be that tool to help people know what their businesses are doing to be green. So some of the features of the website is when you join, you get your own profile. One of our members, River Forest here in Mercer County, you can see. And you also get represented on a map. So you can see all of the sustainable businesses in New Jersey on the map. And we're starting to grow our reach. To become a member, it's actually pretty